This is today's news on front page Dawn. Opposition blasts government in National Assembly NA over SBP State Bank of Pakistan bill mini budget. By Amr Wasim, 30th December 2021. Islamabad. The opposition on Wednesday harshly slammed the government on the floor of the National Assembly over its plan to present a mini budget and a bill granting autonomy to the State Bank of Pakistan (SBP) to meet certain conditions of the International Monetary Fund (IMF) and vowed to block it with full force, terming it a step towards surrendering the country's financial sovereignty. Speaking on points of order while interrupting the question of Pakistan People's Party, PPP, MNA Raja Parvez Ashraf, and Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, PMLN, parliamentary leader Khwaja Asif even asked the Treasury members not to support the government bills which, according to them, would make the lives of the people of the country more difficult. Mr. Ashraf said the government needed to remove confusion and clarity the situation as there were whispers inside and outside the parliament that it was planning to bring a mini budget in the assembly. Mr. Asif feared that the country's nuclear program was also in danger and it could be the next target. This is a request to the Treasury members, people, not to surrender the country's economic sovereignty, Mr. Asif said, warning that after this, Pakistan will be stripped of its nuclear capability. Through this money bill and the SBP bill, we are going to surrender our financial sovereignty, which will be worse than what happened on December 16, 1971, Mr. Asif said in his usual aggressive style amid slogans of shame, shame for the opposition benches. The PMLN stalwart said the SBP had already been converted into a local branch of the IMF and the country had already received a viceroy in the form of the SBP governor. We have become a financial colony of the international donor institutions. For God's sake, become a shield for the people of this country against price hike, vandalism, and terrorism. Please have some realization, Mr. Asif said while pointing towards the Treasury benches. He said the government did not have the required numbers in the House, which was evident from the fact that it had not been able to complete quorum of the assembly for the past 3 days. He, however, without elaborating, said they knew that the government could manage votes through facilitators. The PMLN lawmakers voted to oppose the two bills with a full force and asked the government to try to create a national consensus as to how the country could be brought out of this difficult situation. Earlier, Mr. Ashraf said everyone in the House, as well as people from difficult walks of life, were concerned over reports that the government was planning to introduce a money bill or a mini budget. Inflation, unemployment, and shortage of gas and other commodities have already weakened havoc on the have already wreaked havoc on the people of the country. Now, if a mini budget or money bill is in the offing, which would increase their difficulties, then everyone sitting in the House should resist the move, he said. Responding to the speeches of the two opposition members, the Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi assured the House that the government would not and could not make any compromise on the country's nuclear program and that the country's economic sovereignty would be protected. He, however, did not make any specific comment on the mini budget and the SBP bill and once again blamed the previous governments for the present state of national economy. When Deputy Speaker Qasim Suri gave floor to the Foreign Minister, the opposition members pointed out lack of quorum and staged a walkout in an effort to prevent him from responding to the speeches made by the two senior opposition members. Mr. Suri, however, declared the House in order after a head count and allowed Mr. Qureshi to continue his speech. As soon as Mr. Qureshi resumed his speech, the opposition members returned into the House to participate in the proceedings. Starting that protection of the country's economic sovereignty was collective responsibility of the government and the parliament, Mr. Qureshi said the country's macroeconomic indicators had not become alarming during the last 3 years. He said the overall economy had not deteriorated in the last 3 years, but this was a long story that needed to be reviewed. Commenting on the point raised by Mr. Asif about the country's nuclear assets, the minister said, I want to say this on the floor of the House, that there was and will remain a national consensus on credible minimum deterrence. Joint opposition meeting, the joint opposition during a meeting on Wednesday pledged to block the mini budget and the SBP bill in the assembly. According to PMLN Information Secretary Mariam Aurangzeb, the members of the opposition discussed the strategy to prevent the mini budget and other IMF dictated legislations from being passed in the House. The opposition members pledged to use all their powers and resources to ensure that the legislation would not get approved. They hoped that the upright government allies would also take a decision against these steps of Prime Minister Imran Khan and would vote for the country's national interests. Those who attended the meeting included former Prime Minister Shahid Khaqan Abbasi and Khwaja Asif of the PMLN, Naveed Qamar of the PPP, and parliamentary leader of Jamiyat Ulama Islam, Asad Mahmood. It was decided that the opposition members would be asked to ensure their attendance on the day of presentation of the controversial bills in the Assembly. Imran tells the Chief Minister CM to continue PTI to win next phase of KP polls. By Syed Irfan Raza, 30th December 2021. Islamabad, following the unexpected defeat of the ruling Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf (PTI) in the recently held first phase of local government elections in its stronghold of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and differences among the party candidates, the Prime Minister Imran Khan on Wednesday dictated the province's chief minister to ensure unity among party ranks for winning the second phase of polls next month. Moreover, owing to the severe shortage of natural gas in the country, the Prime Minister directed the authorities concerned to ensure expeditious issuance of licenses for domestic exploration of gas to meet the increasing demand, especially in winter. He vowed to celebrate the Diamond Jubilee of the country in a befitting manner. KP Chief Minister Mahmood Khan called on the Prime Minister to discuss the upcoming second phase of local government elections in the PTP's organizational structure in the province. According to the Prime Minister's office, Imran Khan directed the Chief Minister to take all steps to ensure unity and discipline within the party ranks for the next phase of the LG electronics local government elections. Not LG electronics, local government elections. The KP Chief Minister apprised the Prime Minister of the progress on various development projects in the province, at which the Prime Minister directed to complete all the projects on time so that people could get immediate relief and facilities. Following the defeat in the first phase of the local government polls, the Prime Minister had wrapped up the PTI's organizational structure and grilled the KP Chief Minister over the loss. He had called wrong selection of candidates as the main cause of the defeat and observed that in some constituencies, 3 PTI candidates were contesting for 1 seat. Differences among the PTI candidates were confirmed after some of them moved courts against each other. It is because of their party candidates' differences that the Prime Minister directed the KP Chief Minister to ensure unity among party ranks before the second phase of the local government polls, which is scheduled for January 16, 2022. Sources told Dawn. The sources said the Election Commission of Pakistan, ECP, declared the provincial results of 45 out of 63 tehsils in 17 districts of KP where local body elections were held on December 19. According to the provincial results, as well as unofficial and unverified results from 53 tehsils, the Jamiat Ulama-e-Islam JUI was leading with 20 seats. At the second spot was the PTI with 13 seats. Independent candidates have won in 10 tehsils, while the Awami National Party ANP has so far won in 6 tehsils. The PMLN has claimed the 3 seats, Jamaat-e-Islami 2 and PPP and Tehreek-e-Islahat Pakistan 1 seat each. The JUIF also clinched the mayor's seats in the provincial capital of Peshawar, Kohat, and Bannu. In Mardan, the ANP's nominees for mayor swept the polls. Gas exploration at a separate meeting on the demand and supply of natural gas. Prime Minister Khan instructed the relevant departments to remove hurdles in the process of installation of new liquefied natural gas LNG terminals. And virtual pipeline projects by investors. The meeting with federal ministers was briefed about the demand and supply from domestic reserves and a shortfall and import of LNG. It was informed that the current constrained demand of gas in the country was 4,700 million cubic feet per day. That increased to at least 6,000 mmCFD. In winters, the supply to domestic consumers amounted to 3,300 mmCFD. That was decreasing each year. The Prime Minister directed that the gas shortfall be managed by importing LNG. With the current infrastructure, there was a shortfall of nearly 1,000 mmCFD in winter, for which multiple options were being adopted, he stated. The meeting was also told that in the short term, the existing capacity of domestic terminals was being optimized, and the process of issuance of virtual pipeline licenses expedited. Additionally, the installation of 2 new LNG terminals was underway, with all bottlenecks being removed on priority. In this regard, the ministries of Maritime Affairs and Petroleum, as well as the Oil and Gas Regulatory Authority, were directed to coordinate and take all other stakeholders, including the investors, on board. The Prime Minister emphasized the importance of the North-South gas pipeline and directed to ensure its execution without further delay in the agreed timetables. Awards for exporters. In another meeting, Prime Minister Khan emphasized the need for promoting the export culture and said the traders helping increase the country's exports would be rewarded with civil awards. The PMO quoted Mr. Khan as saying, "We need resilient exporters who will be rewarded with national civil awards as per their performance in increasing exports." He also directed the Ministry of Commerce to develop a portal that could cater to the complaints of exporters. The ministry was also directed to act as a catalyst and to achieve sustained growth in exports. We have to develop an ecosystem and a culture that can increase exports and decrease our dependence on imports, he stressed. Mr. Khan also directed all the departments concerned to develop robust policies and transparency by using technology. Earlier, advisor to the Prime Minister on Commerce, Abdul Razak Daud, apprised Mr. Khan that this year a record growth in exports had been achieved after 10 years of stagnation. He stressed that it was high time to introduce incentives to further increase the export target. Pakistan's Diamond Jubilee, PM Khan called for holding Pakistan's Diamond Jubilee celebrations in a befitting manner to highlight the country's distinctive identity. Identity, culture, and a unique location. On the occasion of the country's 75th independence anniversary, there is a need to tell the youth about the purpose of Pakistan's creation and the true message of Allama Iqbal. Mr. Khan said while presiding over a meeting held to review preparations for the Diamond Jubilee celebrations in the coming year. He was briefed in detail about the preparations by Minister for Information and Broadcasting, Chaudhry Fawad Hussain. The meeting was told that the celebrations will focus on highlighting the country's history, culture, national heroes, the women who participated in the Pakistan movement, local sports, tourism, economy, Green Pakistan, and relations with friendly countries through various events and documentaries. Every party seeks patronage of establishing, says Minister, by Amir Yasin, 30th December 2021. Rawalpindi Interior Minister Sheikh Rashid Ahmed on Wednesday said every party and politician wanted to be patronized by the establishment, terming the debts on the return of Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, PML, and Supreme Nawaz Sharif useless. Every party wishes that the establishment patronize it, but at the same time raises slogans of giving respect to vote. However, it is the decision of the establishment to support an elected government only, Mr. Ahmed said during his visit to the under construction Mother and Child Hospital at Asgar Mall in Rawalpindi. He was accompanied by a special assistant to the Prime Minister on Health, Dr. Faisal Sultan, as well as senior health officials of Punjab. Mr. Ahmed said useless hype had been created about the return of Nawaz Sharif. It does not matter whether he comes or not. It will not make any difference to the government, he said, adding it was strange that people who spent most of their lives in this country eventually left it instead of loving it. People went abroad for medical treatment instead of availing healthcare facility here, he said. The minister reiterated his offer of a one-way ticket to Pakistan for Nawaz Sharif. Talking about the Pakistan Democratic Movement, PDM, and alliance of opposition parties, the minister said he wanted the alliance to move the date of its protest from March 23 to the 30th as it coincided with Pakistan Day celebrations. For the first time, Pakistan Air Force will introduce J-10C fighter jets during the fly past in collaboration with China, and these fighter airplanes are an answer to Rafale jets, Mr. Ahmad said. I requested them to change the date of the Long March as many special guests will arrive in the country for the March 23 parade. Therefore, maintaining law and order is our priority, he said, adding that no one would be allowed to take law into their hands, and if they did, law would take its course. Mr. Ahmad said they would take part in the next general elections under the leadership of Imran Khan. Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf PTI government under PM Khan will not only complete this tenure, its tenure, but also come into power again, he added. He said Rawalpindi's mother and child hospital worth rupees 6 billion, as well as the Lehmala and Ring Road projects would be completed before the present government's term ended. The minister said Prime Minister Khan would inaugurate the hospital on February 28, 2022, as 90% work on hospital was completed. The hospital would be a state-of-the-art facility and would be included in the Prime Minister's Health Card scheme for the residents of Punjab, he said, adding that the Provincial Central Development Working Party, CDWP, had approved the Leh Expressway project, on which work would be started soon. Department store. The Executive Committee of National Economic Council, ECNEC, had also approved the project, and the residents on both sides of Leh Expressway would be allowed to construct plazas and commercial buildings, Mr. Ahmad said. The Interior Minister said he was working on getting 2 more blocks constructed in CDA Hospital in Islamabad. I face hurdles in carrying out development work in my constituency, but not in Islamabad, as there is no shortage of funds there, he added. Speaking on the occasion, Mr. Faisal Sultan said the 400-bed hospital would be the first state-of-the-art facility of its kind in the country. The hospital was being constructed on 200 canals and a huge amount had been spent on it, he added. Dr. Sultan said health cards would be issued in Islamabad, Azad Kashmir, Gilgit-Baltistan, and in Punjab from January 1. Health cards would change the lives of citizens as they would be able to avail cost-free medical treatment from public and private sector hospitals, he added. PCB plans to resist junior judges' rise to Supreme Court. By Nasir Iqbal, 30th December 2021. Islamabad, Pakistan's legal fraternity has started gearing up to set up effective resistance to what they believe another attempt to elevate a junior judge into the Supreme Court by superseding at least 3 competent senior judges. While the Judicial Commission of Pakistan, JCP, has called its meeting on January 5, 2022 to complete the unfinished agenda to elevate Justice Aisha A. Malik of the Lahore High Court to the Supreme Court. The Pakistan Bar Council, PCB, has called a meeting on January 3 to consider the matter and chalk out an appropriate strategy. It may be recalled that on September 9, lack of consensus during an extended meeting had forced the JCP to defer her elevation as the first ever woman judge in Pakistan's judicial history to enter the Supreme Court. PBC Vice Chairman Khushdil Khan wrote letters to all the Vice Chairmen of executive committees, members of the JCP from the lawyers' side, presidents of the Supreme Court Bar Association, SCBA, and the Provincial and Islamabad Bar Councils and High Court Bar Associations to attend the joint meeting scheduled to be held on Monday at PCB office. The letter issued to different bar associations said the joint meeting was called to consider the elevation of the junior judge into the Supreme Court in what they called violation of the seniority principle. The letters recalled how Chief Justice of Pakistan, CJP Gulzar Ahmad, again proposed the name of the junior judge from the LHC while superseding the three senior judges, including Chief Justice of the Lahore High Court, Muhammad Amir Bhatti. The JCP was meeting on January 5 to consider the same name that had been earlier disapproved by the JCP, the letter said. In this scenario, the joint meeting of lawyers was being called to chalk out a future course of action. Balochistan High Court Bar Association President Majid Kakkar and PCB member from Balochistan Munir Kakkar also termed the elevation of the junior judge an attempt to trample the seniority principle. They emphasized that Justice Malik was being denied the right to become the Chief Justice of the Lahore High Court. Instead of her, the most deserving judge who should be elevated to the Supreme Court was Islamabad High Court, ISC, Chief Justice Atarminullah. They observed, adding that he should be nominated by the JCP to become the judge of the top court. Meanwhile, a meeting of the Executive Committee of the PCB under the chairmanship of Muhammad Masood Chishti in its Wednesday meeting also adopted a resolution endorsing the statement of its vice chairman, highlighting the need to adhere to the seniority principle and to launch countrywide protests. The resolution also unanimously praised the illustrious career of former Justice Sarmad Jalal Usmani, who has become a JCP member, stating that he remained an independent judge and refused to take oath under the provincial provisional constitution order and held his ground against the worst form of dictatorship and always stood for the rule of law and the constitution while adhering to the principle of good conscience, and justice. After his appointment as JCP member, the PCB and the public at large expected the same level of steadfastness and perseverance for principle of seniority in appointment of judges to the superior judiciary. The resolution stated, adding that the council reiterated its consistent stance to stand apart the principle of seniority. Earlier on September 9, a lack of consensus during an extended meeting had compelled the JCP to defer Justice Malik's elevation. As a consequence, PBC Vice Chairman Khushdil Khan had expressed his serious reservations and concerns regarding what he called an attempt to violate the seniority principle for the elevation of judges to the Supreme Court and High Courts. In a statement, the PCB Vice Chairman also emphasized that it was a consistent stance of the legal fraternity that judges should be elevated, appointed on the principle of seniority in all courts, and that the pick and choose practice must be stopped. 4 of the 8 JCP members on September 9, namely Justice Makbul Bagar, Justice Sardar Tariq Masood, former Judge Dost Muhammad Khan, and PCB Representative Akhtar Hussain had opposed the idea, whereas the CJP senior Cuisine Judge Justice Umar Atabandial, Law Minister Barrister Farooq Naseem, and Attorney General for Pakistan AGP Khalid Jawad Khan had favored Justice Malik. Justice Qazi Faiz Isa, another JCP member, however, was out of the country then. When the JCP was meeting on September 9, the lawyers had also organized a protest and convention in nearby Supreme Court Bar Association complex, in which they had accused the judiciary of favoritism due to its pick and choose practice in the appointments and thus harming the judiciary's image. In a resolution adopted, the convention had asked the JCP to strictly adhere to the seniority principle in the judicial appointments to the apex court from the provincial high courts until such time as fair, transparent, and objective criteria for appointment of judges at all levels were framed in a consultation with all stakeholders, including the bar, and appropriate amendments were made into the Judicial Commission rules. Security policing called into question in Senate by Iftikhar A. Khan, 30th December 2021. Islamabad, the opposition in the Senate on Wednesday called into question the National Security Policy NSP, framed without taking Parliament on board, sparking a war of words and rumpus in the House. The opposition also staged a token walkout from the House against the move, besides lodging a noisy protest in front of the chairman's podium. Raising the issue, PPP parliamentary leader in the Senate, Shari Rahman, said, reports suggested that the new policy yet to be shared with Parliament would be based on economic centrality. She said, despite being the primary arena for policy development, the NSP had been approved at a meeting of the National Security Committee without expected consultation from parliamentarians. Ms. Rahman said that instead of evolving consensus in Parliament on the NSP and other issues of economic importance and civilian safety, the government continued to bulldoze bills and disregard democratic norms. How can the country be secured if its economic and security policies were not audited by the public representatives? She said. She asked. She said there had been no consultation with the opposition regarding the NSP, nor had its draft been presented to parliamentarians. Our history is replete with failed policies which did not succeed because they were made behind closed doors. The PPP senator said that there was a paper out there saying that economy would be central, but wondered what the new economic security policy was all about. Is Pakistan going to be secured with the mini budget run? Situation under the incumbent government has proven disastrous for the people. Thus, the government is responsible for unprecedented levels of rupee devaluation, a current account deficit of $7 billion in this financial year alone, inflation rate of 11.50%, and has racked up rupees 50.5 trillion in debt and liabilities for Pakistan. People are unable to afford two square meals, and those who can afford them do not have enough gas in their stoves to cook, she added. Mr. Rahman said the report suggested that the NSP would encompass anti-terror efforts to ensure civilian safety and economic development. Securing Pakistan's economy and population from violent extremism is the country's main priorities. But what is actually happening is far different as groups like TTP, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which have declared jihad against the Pakistani state, are being offered amnesty. Additionally, the government has not made a draft of the NSP available to the public. How can a document focusing on safety and security not be provided to those it aims to protect? She asked. The PPP senator said the government claimed that this was a revolutionary and unprecedented policy. However, incorporating economic development with the national security policies had been done time and again during the tenures of previous governments. During the PPP government, we focused on regional trade from a framework of national security and implemented policies to uplift Pakistan's economic standing both nationally and regionally. The PPP used to make national security policy in complete consultation with Parliament and the opposition. It was always done by the Prime Minister. We are not about to get used to another system where no parliamentary leader takes responsibility for policy, Mr. Rahman said. The House witnessed Pandemonium after Leader of the House and the Senate, Dr. Shahzad Wasim, chided the opposition for skipping the meeting of the Parliamentary Committee on National Security, saying the reason was simply the absence of people in military uniform. He said the opposition's claim that it had boycotted the meeting because the Prime Minister was not attending it made no sense, as they did attend a briefing on national security, which too was not attended by the Prime Minister. The opposition members gathered close to the chair's dais, raising anti-government slogans. On the other hand, the treasury members, in a counter move, gathered close to the seat of Shahzad Wasim to chant anti-opposition slogans. Senate Chairman Sadiq Sancharani kept on asking them to go to their seats and exercise their right to protest from there, but to no avail. Dr. Wasim said the Prime Minister Imran Khan's government was the first one in the country's history that had formulated the NSP. Talking about the economic security, he said, the PPP went to the International Monetary Fund 10 times and the PMLN got loans from it 4 times. During the days in power, he said, both parties got the IMF loans but never made structural reforms. PMLN Senator Afnan Ullah Khan said the spirit of the NSP, as reported in the press, was not bad, but most of its points were general and not specific. It stated that security of citizens and the economy will be central, but the document didn't tell how both these targets would be achieved, he argued. The opposition lawmaker said that if the economy would be central, then all resources would have to be redirected downwards. Revival of the economy. He said the opposition should have been taken into confidence when the NSP was being framed. Minister of State for Parliamentary Affairs Ali Mahmood Khan informed the House during the question hour that out of around 14,000 employees of the National Debate and Registration Authority, Database and Registration Authority NADRA, only 6, including Director General Ali Nawaz Malik, were on deputation. None of the 6 was a retired military officer. In reply to a volley of supplementary questions about the number of retired army officers permanently absorbed in NADRA, their registrations and special qualification, Mr. Khan claimed that no one had been given special privilege and promised to share the details with the Senate. And in the end, the formal request, if you have not yet, please subscribe our channel and press the like and bell button to get the press from us. Thank you for watching. Have a nice time and goodbye.